How's it going, end page? I'm going to make this video as simple as possible. It's an answer to your question of how does small incremental changes prove that we can get from a land animal to a sea animal. And of course that on its own doesn't. It's small incremental change. Knowing that small incremental changes doesn't prove anything. It just says, okay, it's within the realms of possibility. What proved it was the molecular and genetic evidence. That's it. That's the answer to your question. Now, theoretical bullshit made the incredibly poignant point that this is not a philosophical area, it's a science area, and if you want a science question answered, perhaps you should talk to a scientist. And more often than not, the questions that you ask are either irrelevant or they require actually some pretty extensive answers, and you're probably not going to want to sit there and listen to a whole lecture explaining it if you're not prepared to even read a book, which by the looks of that last video, you're not. But I have here Richard Dawkins' The Greatest Show on Earth, and right here, you see that? This is some more evidence. Evidence, not proof, evidence. It is a series of animals which we have found bones for. Notice, see how it doesn't progress? It's not like a line straight from him to him to him to him. The line goes out, there is a split from which that animal is a cousin to the descendant of that animal, which is a cousin to the descendant of that animal. It's not just a direct, straightforward march. There is a series, like once you get to a species, that species can split in different directions, and that species can split in different directions. And whenever we find a fossil, we can't assume that it is immediately the exact descendant. It's probably a cousin. So that's why it's written that way. And these are all things that would help you understand the holes in your questions. If you understand these really quite simple ideas, it'll better help you to understand the holes in your questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Find out about the molecular evidence. Find out why scientists say that the hippopotamus is now understood to be the closest living relative to the whale. Like, that information is available to you. And it's not just because we know that small incremental steps with changes in selection pressures can result in change over time. It's because we actually have the forensic evidence dating backwards to see, yes, that indeed is actually what happened. So we don't need to prove that that can happen, we just need to prove that it did. And that's what they've done. So look it up, find out what the molecular evidence is and the genetic evidence. In case you're wondering, it's the exact same thing that allows you to perform a paternity test. They can see your relationship to your father or your mother or your grandfather or whatever written in your genetic code. They can see the same relationship in fossilized DNA. They can actually measure the distance of variation between two different species, even if one of them doesn't exist anymore, so long as there is some fossilized DNA. And to any sincere, really proper biologist, I'm probably coming off as ignorant at this point even, because it's true, I'm not a scientist. But this is just the basic stuff that people really should know, especially if they want to ask these questions and think that they're legitimate questions, because they're not. Fuck you everybody, good night.